Oh my goodness. Hey, hi, it's Mike. Did you know that Abe and Bridget and me are trying to make a movie right now? Yes, right dang now. It's called Papa Bear. It tells the poignant and hilarious true story of the time my dad came out as a gay furry when I was 17. If you care about that at all, please head to seedandspark.com/fund/papa-bear to find out much more about the project, how you can be a part, and earn really cool rewards for helping us out. See you there. Here's your pod. Thanks so much. It's a scary Pet Sematary. Lou from Massachusetts is moving to Derry, but suddenly somebody's running over their cat, so they bury it, but it gets resurrected so fast. So the cemetery won't let the creeds be or let things stay D to the EAD. They try to shut it down, but can't you see? Saying this grave's empty, OMG. So come on and flip when the Wendigo rips your soul from your body and you turn to a dick and get ready. Shit's about to get lit now. I settle on my lawsuits. Fuck you, Lithgow.
Whoa!
Huh? That's all. It's done. You can respond.
The Slim Reaper over here. That is.
Yeah.
I love it. You just came in at 11, baby. And that's what you get.
Slim
when
Grady? Is that his name, Grady? I don't know Lithgow's character. If it's Grady, then amazing.
No, it's Louis. Or Lewis.
No, Lewis is the main guy. What's Lithgow's name in it?
Oh, Lithgow is Judd.
Judson. That's right.
Well, good. There's no pun there, but guess what is here?
Mm-hmm.
Cock. That's right.
Yeah.
Kings of King.
We didn't mean to make that the acronym. I'm kind of sorry it is, but yeah.
I mean, it's got to be something. Might as well be funny. I didn't even think about it. Like when we formed it, I don't think that was on our mind. We were just like...
Yeah, before Cock, the title's much longer, but we realized it spelled analingus, and we're like, we can't do that. I'm Michael Swaim. That's Abe and Mike. We talk about all kinds of film and TV adaptations of our man Stephen King. So if you were unaware of what King, it's Stephen King. That one. Is there another famous author named King? At me.
Martin Luther, I believe.
Oh, shit. I'm sorry. Take it back. Not Luther. This film had 2 directors and 2 writers, so this podcast has 2 hosts. That's how we do it on this show. And if you're interested, check out the Coen brothers, Anders' sons. We do these deep dives with these pun titles, and we like to examine things through oh, no, we don't do lenses on this. We do segments! I almost fooled you. That's right. It was a test, listener. You failed. Let's do the first segment. It's where we nutshell the story in case you haven't remembered it or haven't watched it in a while. So we're going to do Under the Dome for specifically 2019's Pet Sematary.
Our best guess puts the dome at 20,000 feet, sir.
Did he just call it a dome?
You think we might be stuck in here a while?
All right. Let's frame up.
Mm-hmm.
Shot reveals blood and chaos of last night's horror. Car doors open, blood spilled all over the ground. Oh, what happened? Jump to presumably before.
I guess you're wondering how I got into this situation, but without saying that.
This family's driving to their new home in a small mountain town. Boxes ready to open as soon as they arrive. They're startled by a trucker speeding past the home's adjacent street. A stupid jump scare that I think serves as more like a "hey, there's danger here" kind of vibe.
What,
more
the car?
than anything. Yeah, but it's foreshadowing the eventual death.
There's so much sweaty foreshadowing. I like the moment where they're like,
it really is.
But our son won't die. Or will our son die? No, he can't die. Surely.
He can't.
He's just a child.
Die.
Life's not that cruel.
They've moved so they can spend more time as a family. Jason Clarke is the daddy. Jason Clarke daddy. He's a doctor. And I guess he's taken a position out of the city, Boston, so he can spend time with his family. So we got a lot of like, it's just ringing King all over the place. Small mountain town, family, danger on the street.
Later revealed to be Maine. They are in Maine.
Urban, rural. Yeah. It's like, it's just bringing out the hits is the point. This is exactly where you would imagine.
There's no greaser bully with a switchblade. That's the only missing link.
That's true.
Yeah. Maybe Judson was that in the 50s. Like he's the right age for it. He grew up into this. Yeah.
He was the Fonzie.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important to know that they also brought their cat, Church, who is
so crucial to know.
Just the deadest cat you've ever seen in a movie. The first animal in a movie called Pet Sematary. You know that cat is dead as shit. Anyway,
that's true.
Rachel, who's the mother, and Ellie, the daughter, witness a kind of procession when they first go out into their backyard / the forest of their new enormous property, and they see a few kids with like a dead dog in a wheelbarrow. They wear animal masks, so it's just like, oh, okay, we moved to this new house. That's not creepy. And Ellie travels out alone immediately into the forest and finds a pet cemetery with creepy Appalachian twigs and trinkets, not to mention an American flag adorning gravestones, just like real Americana shit. And this is where we're introduced to John Lithgow, who basically chastises her for trying to climb a lumber pile. We'll figure out why later. And he points out, I love the first thing you run into a kid, John Lithgow, and you're like, hey, you want to see my dead dog's gravestone?
Well, they are in the neighborhood. Well, there's a lot of, we'll get into it more, but I think it's amazing how chill the mom is about the procession of kids in masks with a dead animal.
Yeah,
Once she get the explanation, no, she doesn't even get it yet. The kid's like, what is that? And she's like, it's some kind of procession. You're like, that doesn't explain.
Yeah.
Would you not, at the very least, they're on your property
like,
deep in the woods, go,
hey
kids, you want some lemonade?
What?
Or is your mom with you? You know?
Why are you creepy as hell?
They just watch them. Yeah,
Anyway, shows off the dog's great.
But he
Biffer.
says, stay away from here. Generally, it's not good for kids. Dum ba boom.
Bum bum bum. I just marked this because I was like, this is such a Stephen Kingism. John Lithgow, I guess, when he's introducing his dog, has a little rhyme that he likes to say: Biffer, one hell of a sniffer.
Which is
but
like,
cautions,
okay, that's the only reason you named him Biffer. Biffer's not a real dog name.
That's not a real name.
You reverse
of
engineering
anyone.
fuck.
Yeah, you terrible naming asshole. He tells Ellie not to wander in the woods. That seems fair. That night, Ellie's full of questions about death because she just saw a cemetery and she's fairly young, so obviously that would happen.
Death. Yeah.
And her parents explain how natural it is, and it's a great case of King taking a natural part of like child rearing and family, just experiences and just perverting it.
And doing the classic, or it's not really beaten to death, but we've definitely seen it before, where it seems like it's almost the first time the parents have compared notes, or they kicked the can down the road, because they conflict over. One wants to keep her childhood. The mom wants to keep her childhood alive and lie, and the dad wants to tell her like, no, it's not scary. It's okay to accept it, but yes, you'll die and you'll rot away, but it's okay. The two different tacks you could take. And the mom wants to be like, no. When Church is dead, he'll be in pet heaven and shit. So then they step out of the room and argue about how do you discuss death with kids. And I will say, never having read this story or seen any of the versions, this is a King story I wasn't familiar with. I do like that the theme is like, okay, death is scary. What's your take on it? Or like, how do you come to terms with it? Right. The theme is obviously, how do you come to terms with it? And it's horror because he doesn't, and he gets punished.
What are the American, this is not American specifically, but what are the sense like in Americana, like a huge thing that we, family values, right? Like what are the things that you're supposed to say to your kids
and have to
in
do
these cases?
Obliged to do to your kid. Like, I also think it's interesting that it's almost Greek tragedy rules, right? Like, as soon as his kid's dead and he knows there's a graveyard that brings him back to life, he's not going to not do it. Like, it's the Greek tragedy where you're like, Well, he was doomed from the start. What, are you going to not bring your dead kid back to life if you can?
What, are you gonna
even though you
not?
know it's going to go bad? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is America, opportunistic as fuck,
Right.
especially when dealing with your dead children. But something that we also see is this kind of subplot, which is also in the book and in the first adaptation in 1989. There's Pet Sematary, the first. She, as in Rachel, the mother, thinks when she's just moseying over the whole thoughts of death, she thinks of her sister Zelda, who died of something horrifying. It's not really explained, but her body's misshapen and nearly demonic.
Nice job, Link. You're supposed to be looking out for her.
Yeah, exactly. And in her past, her parents left Rachel alone to take care of Zelda for long periods of times, and it's something that clearly traumatized her. And so she also has unique thoughts about like death. And as that subplot develops, we learn that she has had interactions with the supernatural before, which is what we're all setting up.
We learn through watching him do it that Judd is a trauma surgeon at a local school. Kid comes in after a hit and run, having been like dragged under the truck. So he's Two-Face. He's got the meat face on the one half, you know, and they're like, no way, like he's not gonna live. One of the nurses is like, I can see his brain. You're a terrible nurse. You're not prepared for this. Anyway, you're a nurse in a trauma center. Anyway, he dies. But then later that night when, what's his name? Dad? I'm sorry, I'm bad with the character names on this
Jason
one.
Clarke.
Generic.
The character's name is Lewis. Yeah.
Lewis, yeah. When Lewis is alone with the body briefly because he's scrubbing up or whatever, the body sits straight up and comes alive. And the kid's name was Victor. And he says like, you know, horror stuff. I think he says you're all going to die very soon. Or something.
He says
and
the barrier is not
sour.
The barrier is not meant to be broken, is what
Yeah.
he says in this interaction. Yeah.
Warns him again. Like it's a recurring theme. And that's why I say Greek tragedy. This may be the most warned guy who ever still did the thing.
Yeah, he's basically just like, what? You're never listening to me, and I'm telling you horrifying shit all the time.
Like a ghost came back to life to be like, please don't.
Yeah. So like at dinner later, the family in Lithgow, because they're like having like their neighbors, so it's like have Lithgow over, and they discuss the property line. Turns out the cemetery's on the family's property, and that night Jason Clarke has another haunting by Victor, and he dreams that he's in the forest, and that's where we get the kind of famous line, "The ground is sour," and he wakes and realizes his feet are dirty, so it wasn't really a dream after all. Ooh. Next, on Halloween, and I want to point out how everything coincides with like typical like events of child rearing and just like family memory, like just big events, holidays, such like that. Lithgow shows Clarke, hey, your cat got hit by a truck. Maybe you should hide it from the kids. But he's also adamant that, hey, you should bury that tonight, by the way. Now, the parents have to tread this whole death conversation with their kid again because, they're going to have to find a way to explain the cat away.
Or Rachel is like, or we could just say the cat ran away or went to heaven. And they're like, I don't want to do that. So they're arguing about that again. And then we get the second beat of the flashback from Rachel where we learn more about the Zelda trauma, which was that her sister died of a horrible wasting disease that twists your bones and was bedridden most of her life. And on it, like reasonably, or it's not surprising, resentful that she had a sister almost her same age who completely dodged the disease and seemed fine. So she was mean to her and told her, this is going to happen to you, or I hope this happens to you one day. You'll be bedridden for the rest of your life. Just watch. Don't believe me, just watch. That's from this. Anyway, then the parents, when she got old enough, would leave her to take care of her bedridden sister and tell her to feed her. And the house had an old dumbwaiter in it. But from when the house was built, and they would say explicitly, don't feed her with the dumbwaiter, because it doesn't work. Go up there and give her the food. But she was so scared and, gun shy from the horrible interactions with her sister that she fed her through the dumbwaiter. And even though it was so painful and hard for her sister to get up out of bed and move across the room, and then she feels tremendous guilt about the sounds of her sister painfully scraping across the room to get her food. And then to top it all off, one time she does it and the sister falls down the dumbwaiter and snaps her neck and dies right in front of her.
And Zelda seems to persist after, calling her name out from her room. So we get this
and
little
live in the
haunting
house
vibe.
for years after, like be in the walls and shit. Yeah.
So Rachel is just real fucked up by the experience. While burying Church, the cat, Lithgow runs like kind of an audible. He says, because he's starting to grow a relationship with Ellie, and he realizes that the death of a cat will really fuck up Ellie. He doesn't want that, so he's like, hey, Jason Clarke, I'm going to use this horrifying force to revive your cat, so Ellie isn't sad. Even though he fully knows the repercussions, because he did this when he was young, he did this to his dog.
Yeah.
And they travel through what is best described as a bone swamp. And they bury the cat in a special haunted place and do a cute little ritual. And I love that Jason Clarke in this conversation, like halfway through, like he's like, hey, dig that hole, bury your cat, make sure you put some, Karen stones on it and stuff like that, which is really specific. And Jason Clarke, which you would, turns to Lithgow and is like, we doing some necromancy or some shit, like, and Lithgow's like, nah, no, it's fine.
Like my
totally
foot did just crush a human skull, like that shot from Terminator 2. But okay.
okay.
I also like the idea that skeleton's there because some dumb guys came and were like, it's supposed to come back to life. You think we ought to bury him? Nah. We can just set him here. It ain't working, boss. Oh no, the bat. Anyway.
Oh, no. Get out of here.
He also, which I do like, we'll get there because I'm burying the lead, which is, of course, as you'd expect, the next day Church is alive. But he acts different. He hides in the closet and hisses if you approach him. He's covered in blood, but they can't clean him because he'll scratch you. He stinks. And Lewis is like, well, I got to talk to Judd. Judd is mildly surprised, but obviously thought it might happen. He's like, well, I'll be damned. And the bit I thought was funny is that he goes, well, how do you explain it? And he says, I don't. And then they cut to a long scene where he explains it in detail.
Right. I also love that whole scene, Lithgow's playing it real cool. He's like, dude, just chill. You have a dead cat now. It's fine.
It's a dead alive cat. Yeah. But as he explains, it's Shining rules. And indeed, this may be part of the broader multiverse. This movie didn't tie that much into the Kingiverse, but, it's similar to the Overlook Hotel and several other novels. There's a place where so much evil happened or something happened. We don't know why. How can we comprehend? And the place itself is evil. And in the book, I'll point out it was ancient Indian burial ground, as was a popular problematic trope that we've used a lot. And in the movie, they probably, I think smartly, said, no, it's just an evil spot. In fact, so evil that the natives who lived in this area resettled, like they wouldn't live here. And they set up the wood piles all around it to be like, you shouldn't come here.
But America knows no bounds.
Pave it over,
manifest
baby.
Destiny.
Let's put a Walmart there.
Let's put it down.
Do you remember there were news stories about like a Walmart being built on the site of an ancient pyramid that they leveled and shit? Anyway.
Anything for that extra dollar, dude. Maybe the pyramid, maybe those spirits will give you that extra zhuzh. You know what I'm saying?
We're trying to make a movie called now. So now the obligatory scene. Also very kingy and just arch horror-y. Jason Clarke goes through old news clippings and microfiche and shit online and does Google Foo and learns that there's, surprise, a long history of evil events in this town, a la It. And there's even pictures of like the same kids in the same animal masks from 100 years ago or whatever in the old newspaper, right? And all kinds of reports of like so-and-so's dog or oxen was seen on Main Street despite taking 9 bullets to the head in a botched bank robbery or whatever. And he's like, this is the premise of the movie. I understand now. Meanwhile, Ellie's playing with Church and she tries to clean him, but he scratches her. Right. It's just not a good scene. She can tell. Everyone can tell it's creepy.
Everyone knows.
Yeah. So now
the
even
cat is wet and gross
the
and
kid
dead
herself,
smelling.
right? The child is like, Daddy, I don't like New Church. I really think we should go home. I hear the Wendigo sometimes. And he ignores this additional warning and instead goes to make tender love with Rachel. Also a good choice. Like that's
Also a good choice.
Yeah.
I mean, in his mind, he's killing it right now.
Or
you
at
know?
least like repairing the holes in the boat, right?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
managing.
Yeah.
Then Church comes in and drops a dead live bird on their bed.
Yep. As like is normal cat stuff, but even the
My
bird
cat
is
has
like
done that. Yeah.
it feels like the bird has been swallowed and regurgitated. Like everything is wet, and that's just really doing
what's
all the
not
heavy
normal
lifting.
is that they have zombie makeup on, like the animals.
Right.
Yeah.
Good, but it's funny because the behavior of the cat is just normal cat behavior.
If your cat is an asshole, it's just normal cat. Also, Ellie. I keep wanting to call her Gilly. Ellie's saying he stinks, I assume, is a reference to his body is still rotting. I assume the book makes it. So he's literally like,
Full
they're
zombie.
undead, but they're not brought back. They are zombies. No one ever mentions
their body,
but they're essentially zombies who still have
There's no
sentience.
healing.
Yeah.
There's no healing. Like Church is all fucked
Right,
up.
they
I mean,
rot,
I guess
yeah.
there is some like obviously his like spine was broken and it like reattached, but like there's scarring and blood all over.
The rules are not clear to the point that I
Nah.
don't feel the need to analyze them. But you're right. Like her body gets crushed and mangled by a giant truck and it's back together, but then she rots. So whatever. The cat, this is the first thing that's not normal cat behavior. And I do like it as a sinister touch, which was added. It's not in the book. The cat consciously like teasing them places. So the cat leads him down into the basement. Not the basement. Don't do the basement.
Not the basement.
And he has another vision of Victor, the dead kid from the hospital, telling him, I warned you and I'm warning you for a second time. I'll probably swing by one more time to warn you, but I can tell you're not going to do anything about it. So fuck you. And then he gets hit by a truck. And then he gets up and he's like, I'm foreshadowing the thing. I'm not allowed to tell you the thing, but it should be obvious at this
You're
point.
so stupid.
Yeah,
you're
so
just
dumb,
so
dude.
stupid.
Meanwhile, Mom hears scary house sounds and of Zelda, and I thought this was the best jump scare, at least. Opens the medicine cabinet, and it's a spooky hole like it so often is in horror movies, but I just didn't see it coming that they use it as the dumbwaiter shaft. So Zelda, again, falls into frame and snaps her neck, and you're like, whoa.
And it furthers the horror in a specific way, which is different from the jump scares that we've all grown to love to hate, which is that it's just something happens. A car drives by and goes and is loud in the
like in
soundtrack.
Smile, the head falls to the side and enters
This
frame.
is a good jump scare, I would argue.
If you don't, some people completely write off jump scares or fairly enough say, I don't like the experience of just being surprised, so that's not why I'm in it. Cool. But some people do. Like, I don't mind that slight adrenaline bump of a jump scare. I hate when a movie like that's your only textural kind of scare.
Right.
Then it's just boring eventually because of habituation. But I think there can be such a thing as a good jump scare, and this one qualifies.
Yeah. I think this one has a few good ones. I do also think that they go overboard, but that's thumbs up, thumbs down. You know what?
So the baby boy who we haven't talked much about because he's young enough that he has no real personality, but his name is Gage, which is pretty cool.
That's a pretty cool name.
He finds this part really spooked me and is not a jump scare. It's probably the part that spooked me the most because cats can be inherently creepy. Like Dr. Sleep uses this too with the hospice, but
it's also the eyes.
The cat's just staring at the baby like you're the next one to die, right?
Inside the crib.
Yeah.
The crib. Like real. Again,
And he goes, "Don't do that, cat." Yeah.
again, fairly normal cat stuff. Like I assume
A cat would
you
do.
know?
Yeah, cats do
A
that.
cat would just linger, but it's just like, don't want that dead cat near that kid. Get the fuck out of here. And also the toddler has started to, well, not the toddler. I guess he's a little older than that, but Gage has started to draw. Probably like 4 or 5, yeah. Started to draw horrifying pictures of church, like
and he draws
with,
a picture
blood.
of himself as a stick figure broken in the road.
Right, yeah. So he's having some crazy dreams too, which might mean, as you mentioned before, the wider, King multiverse. Perhaps he has some form of shin.
Oh yeah, there's theories online that Gage has The Shining, and also, of course, also in deference to The Shining, I believe, because the most famous deviation that Kubrick made, other than the maze topiary thing, and that was just because they didn't want to try to pull off an animatronic topiary garden, was that Halloran gets axed in the stomach immediately.
Right.
And that was a famously lauded maneuver, and I have to believe that's the reason that this movie goes so hard, goes like, you know how in the book the little boy dies? That is what's going to happen. That's totally the little boy. You know the story, the little boy.
You know it.
Like
Yeah,
they foreshadow, so they can do the twist of the girl dies instead. But not yet. So first he goes to Judd again, and Judd gives him a second explanation where he's like, well, maybe it's the Wendigo. I don't know. Because ultimately we don't know, but there is a screech we hear from the woods, and there's a legend of the Wendigo, which is some kind of monster or spirit.
It's an animal death spirit.
Evil demon.
Yeah.
Point is, in this movie, we don't see it or hunt it and aren't scared of like the actual physical animal. It's more like a possessing demon that
We
makes
do see
everything
at
evil.
one point later, but it's easy to miss.
But this does not turn into a hunting Bigfoot movie, which I
It's
would have
not-
liked.
Exactly.
Because it would have been Lithgow does Harry and the Hendersons, and then to this, you know?
Yes, get out of here.
Just stabbing
Get out
the
of
Wendigo
here.
over and over, screaming,
Just
"Go,
stabbing.
get out! No one wants you here." Anyway, also I think it's so hilarious that he goes, "And what happened to Biffer? Oh, he came back evil. Well, then what the fuck were we?
What you were doing?"
And he's like, "I thought it'd be different this time. It's been like 30 years. I don't know how evil cemeteries work. I thought maybe
that's
it
fair.
wore off." Yeah.
That's fair, but like it's not a gamble you should make with my kid's cat. Like that's an overreaching, neighbor.
Yeah. And he says another trailer line and book line, "Sometimes dead is better."
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
That's one of the more famous lines.
Mm-hmm.
So Clark can't bring himself to euthanize the cat. He's like ready to do it with like a needle and everything. So instead he sets it free in the forest. And man, oh man, they got the best cat for this, by the way. Just constantly
Played by
pissed.
4 cats.
Just pissed as hell. Just
Yeah.
like, don't leave me out here. And we know that thing's coming back. Cut to at her birthday, Ellie, while playing hide and seek, sees Church coming back on the road. Or, Engage, the boy, is almost killed by a truck, as is promised. But he's saved by Jason Clark, Daddy. And the truck flips to avoid them both. And it kills Ellie. Twist, different from the book and the 1989 adaptation, where Gage is actually the kid who comes back from the dead. Yeah, that's where we're going. So the family is obviously devastated, and there's a honestly slow pace, like 10-minute grieving period where like nothing much happens in the film other than Rachel and the boy Gage go to Rachel's parents. And sensing that Jason Clark is planning on reviving Ellie.
I'm sorry. I just have to point out a shot in the middle because, of course, they glossed right over the funeral. Like it's just a brief moment of grief. But I do think it's very important that Judd, who, may I remind you, this character is the inspiration for the South Park trope. Oh, you don't want to go down that road there.
Not that road there.
Like he is the warner. Like from this guy, we derive all of the guys in the last gas station before you go into the woods to stay at the cabin who goes, "That cabin? Whoa, okay."
He's definitely of that
At
type.
the funeral, Judd locks eye contact with Jason Clark and gives him a, look, like, we're going to resurrect you.
You know,
He's
you
such
could
an
do it.
enabler.
Yeah, you could do it,
We're
though.
gonna do
You
it, dude.
could do it.
And then later
So-
he's like, why did you do that? You gave me the eyes. I didn't give you the eyes. You know, like that's his
Yeah.
vibe.
So Judd is a little Judd is a little tease.
Yeah.
Because sometimes dead is better, but also because he also misses Ellie, I guess. And 3 times the charm with graveyards, I guess. But Jason Clarke decides to take away any agency and just nip that in the bud, and decides to drug Lithgow and exhume Ellie's corpse from the person graveyard
Tasty.
and perform the ritual at the animal
And
graveyard.
as he performs it, Victor's ghost appears and says,
Mhm.
"Good sir, as foretold, for the 3rd and final time, I am
Yeah.
warning you to not do this. All right, I gotta go." And he ignores this additional warning.
Thrice. Yeah.
That's right. And we even cut to Boston and where the parents, Rachel and Gage are with the parents. And we see that Gage can see Victor and starts crying. And I have to imagine Victor just told him, "Kid, your dad's an idiot. I tried. I'm sorry. I'm out of here."
I'm sorry, I'm horrifying
Yeah.
to look at, but
Yeah.
kid, you got a shitty father. And we actually see when he's performing the ritual, off in the distance, we see the Wendigo looking
Just like
on
eyes
as
and
he
it
does.
howls. You're right.
Yeah, and of course Ellie rises from the dead, and of course she comes back wrong. And then there's this terrible sequence of scenes where Jason Clarke is basically like, "Oh, I have a daughter now,
She's not
but
a
she's
zombie.
totally fucked
It's
up."
still good. It's still good.
He's combing her hair in the bathtub and it falls out. She remembers her own death.
I don't know why. I guess because the coroner pieced her back together after the car accident. Yeah. So she has
And she's just
staples up her head and shit. Yeah.
Yeah, her skull got crushed from the.
That's right.
From
Now
the,
I see.
From yeah, and but I love this touch that she's immediately like, "I'm confused. I remember my death. I'm dead, right?" And he's like, "Nah, baby, nah,"
Forcing her into the position that he was against, which is lying to her about death.
Yeah.
I do like that.
And then we get this, because we do have this kind of flirtation about the rules about like, are they just naturally malevolent? Like, what's going on with these zombies? Because Ellie seems like she's chill until she's lied to. And then she immediately wants to just wreck shit. So the reason I mention it is because I think a little later we're going to talk about like Stephen King's impulses when it comes down to, is grief something that you make for yourself, or is it always something that is done unto you? Anyway, that's just something that's interesting, is I think that they played with. Ellie is both kind of, she is both a demon and just is naturally going to do demon shit. But also, like, if you didn't lie to the demon, there could have been a way out. Like, she could have been like less good, like less of a monster, but we'll see. After a call from Rachel, because obviously they've been in kind of phone conversations. Rachel and Lewis have been kind of talking on the phone, and she can tell he's in a terrible place. He's obviously still there, and it's just like, that place is full of grief, and he's like, I don't want to let go of her yet. And she doesn't realize that he literally means that. So she's like, "You know what? I'm going to call Lithgow and check on my husband for me." And he's like, "Hey, buddy, you got a dead daughter in there?" He basically
Is that your daughter in there?
Is that dead daughter in there? He basically tells him, "If you do, take care of it.
I'll shoot her in the
your
head.
Dead daughter."
That's what neighbors are for.
And I love it's like, you should also do that pretty quick before your wife gets home.
She'll
Like,
fuck
he's
your shit
cleaning
up.
up a party or some shit.
Yeah.
And Ellie's overhears this conversation, so she sees Lithgow leave.
He
and
sees her in the window, confirming she exists. So he grabs a gun. She grabs a
Mhm.
scalpel.
And she goes over to his house and slices his Achilles heel while he's coming down the stairs. Good visceral murder. I love it.
Also echoing, it's a famous point in the book and every adaptation. People love the ankle slice. It's synonymous with this story. Like, I knew it without imbibing the story.
It's one of those things that I almost always like put my hand in front of my eyes
Chucky
when
did
I'm
an
like,
homage
no,
to
it's
it, I
coming.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, I hate that. I hate it so much.
Yeah.
Also, Ellie is now fully like Wendigo powered or spirited, because she's able to morph or force hallucinate Lithgow with her face is now his dead wife's face. And they have like a short conversation where she like dunks on Lithgow.
It's now exorcist rules.
Yeah,
Meaning she
and
also
petty.
looks into your heart and says the pettiest, most cutting, worst thing and knows all your
Right.
secrets. Like, later she'll say to the mom, I think we can like blow through her a little bit, in the sense that, all hell breaks loose and she does all kinds of Exorcist and Evil Dead shit and they fight her, but they don't want to kill her. And the mom's terrified. And the mom is comparing it to her sister's experience with her sister. And the demon knows it. So Ellie's saying shit like, you wanted her to be dead. You liked it. You prayed that she would die. I did. You're a piece of shit in hell. All that stuff. It's pretty good. But it's like just climactic chasing around. I don't need to. By the way, she fully killed Lithgow after the slice.
She just stabs the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And
so he runs. Lewis, the dad, here's Ellie run into the yard and they're chasing her and they're like, where is this little fucking raptor? And Ellie maneuvers into the bedroom with the knife and stabs her mom a bunch, sits with her and tortures her as she slowly dies, stabs her in the gut and literally twists the knife and sits there and like kills her as slowly as possible and says like, I was your daughter and you just watched me die. You did nothing. It's your fault. Pretty fucked up. Also says the line you gotta say. I mean, it's such a primal human fear. Daddy was wrong. There is something after this, but no one goes to heaven. Everyone goes to hell. I'll see you there, Mummy. You'll be there soon, Mummy. And then,
I also love in the sequence, there's because there's a short conversation between Jason Clarke and when Rachel and Gage return, where Rachel is like, what the fuck are you doing? And Jason Clarke, in his grief, pleads with her, basically explaining himself. And he says, let God take his own fucking kid, which is a great line.
But he did.
Honestly. No, his own fucking,
Jesus.
Don't take my kid.
Jesus?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
But he's like, maybe look into it anyway.
Maybe do some research before
People said
show
mean
your
things
ass.
to him as he died. In fact, I believe, and I don't know if this is intentional on King's part, in the book, I don't know if this is supported. I'd love if someone who's read it chimes in, but I noticed she stabs the mom right where the spear pierced Jesus as he suffered and died on the cross.
Well, there you go.
Maybe convert, maybe. Anyway, he finds, Lewis bursts in and finds the mom dying. Her last words are, don't you fucking do it. Don't you resurrect me.
Don't
Something
you
along
resurrect
those lines.
me.
Ellie sneaks up behind and knocks him out with a chair, professional wrestling style. Like, boom, in the back of the head with a chair.
My God. Exactly.
Ellie drags mom's body to the haunted swamp. So now it's dawning on you. Oh, she's going to make a zombie family. Yeah.
I want to pause one thing because you skipped one little detail that I think is important for the very end of the thing, which is that Rachel, before she dies, in her panic of like, I know I'm about to die and I'm in a room with Gage, throws Gage down to Jason Clarke in the yard, and Jason Clarke puts Gage into the car and locks it. So now there is a 4-year-old in a car. And then all these events happen.
By the way, also total shades of Cujo, just because we like to track King's overlap here, because something King's a master of is he has written so many stories, and as you're experiencing them, they do feel mostly different, and mostly people just notice like the bully thing or that he likes to throw in old slang. But the more you dig in, the more you notice like he's a master of reusing and reusing. And I don't mean that in a bad way, because among his 50,000 books, there's still hundreds of original ideas. But he's not afraid to, like a stand-up comedian, like tour with the same material or whatever. Yeah, so I just think it's interestingly similar to Cujo, which features a child locked in a car alone because the parent dies and there's a rabid dog outside the car. And that's the whole premise. I'm excited to cover that one. Anyway, Ellie's trying to turn everyone into a zombie family. He chases her to, you know where she's going. She says, welcome to Carcosa. I'm sorry, the buried church. Attacks him with the butcher knife. They fight. There's some light wire work. Some John Wick shit. They're shooting at each other. Gun kata from Equilibrium. None of this. I forget. I think they just grapple and stab each other in the mud.
They grapple.
He's gonna decapitate her with a shovel. Good on ya. And she acts cute, which we've seen before because the cat acted cute to try to get someone to spare its life. And he's like, I can do it now. You know, parallel to when he couldn't kill the cat. He's like, I got to do, like, I have to do this no matter how hard.
You gotta go, Ellie.
So he's ready to do it, but zombie mom has risen and she stabs him in the back with a piece of pointy rebar before he can decapitate their daughter. They bury him. He's a zombie. What? No zombie Judd? Didn't want zombie neighbor? Okay.
Nope.
Didn't earn his way in. Anyway, they're all zombie family. And the chilling final image is zombie family coming up to the car and like smiling in at the kid and knocking on the window and going like, hello.
Yeah, right as it cuts to black, we hear the sound of the car being unlocked. So one big happy zombie family. And that's under the dome. That's the 2019's Pet Sematary.
Yeah. So despite repeated warnings that I am hearing in my head from some ghost, let's dig further into this bone swamp in a segment we call Skeleton Crew.
Something in the mist! Shut the doors! Shut the door!
This is where we talk about anything behind the scenes or logistical we want to discuss. We actually covered a bit of it as we synopsized. As I joked at the top, this was directed by two folks, written by two folks. There's nothing interesting about that except the fact that I looked through all of their IMDb's exhaustively, and I think it's notable that none of them have ever made anything interesting. Like, no one involved. Yeah. They've all only made mediocre stuff. Spoiler alert, this film's like not great or whatever. But that's all I'll note. I think it's that's notable. Moving on.
Yeah, the craftspeople and like whatever. Directors, writers are, like they were using a younger, greener kind of crew, which is kind of, 2019 still true, very much true, but this was starting to happen. Something that studios would do a lot of, especially for projects like this. And one of the names that I want to mention, who is the producer of this, is Lorenzo di Bonaventura, who is you'll recognize him because he's all over the Transformers series, all of the Michael Bay's like producers.
I stand corrected.
But that's not why he's famous. Like, he's one of the biggest producers in Hollywood, period. Because famously, when he worked at Warner Brothers, he was the guy who jumpstarted and say, hey, everyone, there's this thing called The Matrix that I read. We need to buy it right now. And they did. And then a few years later, he was like, we need to beat everyone to these books. They're called Harry Potter. And we need to buy them right now.
Oh, so the producer's super notable. Okay.
So the producer, and that's one of these. That's what these kind of a lot of horror movies like. That's like a lot of the trajectory of James Wan as well.
It also kind of feels like a guy playing roulette who's good at it. Spreading some bets around. Once you have a big pile of chips, right? You want to diversify your bets.
And the studio already knows what they want to do with the picture at this point. So this is like where we really start to see how producers have not overstepped, but like they've taken a new role in the creative kind of, arbitration of these movies. And that's what and sometimes people will argue like, and I'm probably in that camp where it's like, yeah, that's what makes these things kind of feel all the same because they're all kind of risk adverse in that way. But it's being done by a farm and they kind of want less resistance. So they hire writers and directors and people who will listen because they're excited to work on something. And they can have very creative ideas for the picture, but it's not going to, digress too far from the original kind of studio vision. So,
and it was one of the very studio driven, like Paramount pushed for the movie to be made finally because King let them know that their option on the rights to the IP was about to run out and he wasn't going to renew. So they're like, we better squirt one out real quick then if we're going to make our money back on the investment of owning the Pet Sematary franchise.
Which is so that tells you why these types of movies are made, and that's very interesting to me because it's like, it's like a mathematical decision and also like the concept, even down to like the color correction and stuff.
Yeah.
Very mathematical.
So equally interesting to me logistically, of course, are a few things that they changed, most notably Ellie dying instead of Gage, which their reason is very simple and straightforward and I think very smart. She's old enough to form more complete sentences and they wanted to play with the kid being able to talk. I will say it's interesting that heading down that road there, it's an old story, right? And I think one of the things we got to talk about is it's highly influential in terms of horror tropes. There's a lot of horror tropes from the book. It's an older book, 70s, I think, that became borrowed. So like the fact that she can speak almost led the writers into the trap of doing a sound-alike of Exorcist, because what else is she going to say? You know, and that actually bothered me. But in this day and age, if they just made Gage do it, it would have felt derivative of Chucky, even though it inspired Chucky, I'm pretty sure. You know, like it's just this
that's a
plus
great
what
point.
if it was a doll? So anyway, it's got that interesting melange of that kind of stuff. But they were trying to keep it fresh. And the other way they tried to keep it fresh, of course, is the ending is nothing like the original ending. And
they shot two endings, and one of them was the book ending, and one was the ending that we saw
they
that
tested
did
a few.
well.
That's right. That's true.
And the book ending is a little darker. Basically, he doesn't kill Gage, or in this case, it would have been Ellie. And so they shot that version, and they bury Rachel in the cemetery together. And then once they're reunited, we see a shot of Jason Clarke kind of holding Gage, crying, and he's gonna he's gonna be a human.
Honey, I'm home, and he's gonna try to make it work with the zombie family.
He basically kills his whole family. It's kind of like the Mist ending, which is kind of interesting.
I wanted to bring this up, even though it belongs in the other segment, but since you mention it, I will say an opinion, and we'll just have to have it unsorted. Sorry, it's the wrong segment.
That's fine.
But it's the time because you brought it up. This is in 2019. A lot longer than The Mist, like a lot after The Mist. And The Mist is really good. And The Mist also famously changed the ending. And The Mist also ends with, spoilers, or listen to that episode or watch it, but I'm about to say it, him as much as you can, right? Like being forced to face death. He has to shoot his kids in the head, and they're not zombies. They're his alive kids.
His living kids.
What's interesting is this twist that the filmmakers made, not King, in the same, both at once, and this is what I think makes it sort of muddy, which kind of makes it mediocre to me, is the Mist ending is actually, if you copy and pasted it to here, that ending's better for this movie than this ending, which is derivative of that ending. It's almost like they did a worse version of it, in the sense that the theme is he wants to protect his kid and he wants to come to terms with death. What better ending for a horror movie than he has to face death by killing his kid? They are the two things he wanted are at odds now. So I'm just saying, if you're gonna change the ending, do the actual logical point that your theme was escalating to. You know what I mean? Because you also love structure. Yeah.
No, you're 100% correct.
And they just made it a random
exactly
scary
right.
thing that also doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Because I would just say, if you imagine what happens next, it A, doesn't make sense, and B, is funny. Like, so now the whole family's zombies. Do they live in the house and try to pretend to be humans and get people to think
what are
they're
they gonna
humans? Like, what is a zombie? Who are they torturing? If they're the devil and they want souls, they're all zombies now. Like, what's the point?
I mean, I guess that's what ultimately Deadites and zombies and what they all want in the end is total victory.
World full
So
of
I guess they're
zombies,
just gonna walk out into the street and just find some people to kill, I guess, you know? But yeah, you're right. It doesn't land in any thematic kind of resonance other than, and they failed. You know, and the worst case scenario occurred. Yeah, that's sometimes how you do tragedy.
This isn't horrible. It's just
it's
fine.
No. Yeah. But it's like it could have been an apt kind of like, and you reap what you sow.
It's not
kind of thing.
and I expect that the novel is really apt. This actually makes me want to read it because I fear death and grapple with death and mortality. And Stephen King has said that writing this novel scared him the most. And I got to imagine that he means by that that this is the novel where he really talks about not just scary ways you could be in pain or die, but like literally the fear of inevitable mortality. And I would be interested in his more unpacked musings on that topic.
I imagine that what he meant is that while he was writing it, he would, scribble, and go, oh, oh,
Then Zelda would fall and snap her neck, and he'd go, "What? Why?
oh, oh.
What letter is that?
Anyway.
Oh, it's just a K. It's an X."
Ah! So
yeah,
that's all I
that's all
have
I got.
for Skeleton Crew.
Sure.
You want to head on over to it since we kind of started the conversation anyway?
Yeah, let's pinch it off in the middle.
Let's pinch it off. So this is where we talk about scene work, themes, and symbolism, and just what, Mike and Abe usually want to talk about in a segment we call It.
Bill, if you'll come with me, you'll float too. You'll float too. You'll float too.
And as I said, don't feel shortchanged if it's not a super long It, because you were listening. We kind of already started, but let's continue.
I have a few things
Yeah.
on this one, actually.
Great.
Because, I love how, in a way, because it's simplistic and kind of rudimentary King, it really, really shows exactly what I think King is up to in all of his works. But first, I want to ask two questions. One question. So, Victor, what's his deal? Because, was he buried in the special place? Is he separate from the Wendigo? Is he just a ghost? Because he haunts not
Right.
just Jason Clarke, but Gage at one point, through distance in Boston. So, what? I don't know if there's, he seems to obey different rules.
Yeah.
Did you understand how that works?
Well, I
or
got to
was
correct
this just something
myself.
where you're like-
The book was actually written in 1983, not the 70s. But yeah, to answer your question, I thought, and reading a little bit about the book, I got confirmation that that's more like The Shining, like the evil, the sour ground
just
Wendigo
yeah.
spirit also infects the whole town, kind of like the Mangler or whatever. And it slightly controls your mind to make you think that it's a good idea to bury things in the Pet Sematary, kind of like a Venus flytrap or whatever, or like a pitcher plant.
Right.
So that actually does retcon and make a lot of things make sense. Like Judd is apparently in the book, as he ages, it's able
being
to
played,
fuck with
yeah.
him. And so he's like, it really seemed like a good idea at the time, but obviously now I see we shouldn't have done that. And and it's more supported. So I think
Kinda
that
like
answer
It.
is there. Right. And
I can
but
live with that. So
I guess one
he's
thing
just-
I still don't get, and I know that Victor is in the book, or that mechanism is there. Why would the evil spirit make someone hallucinate someone telling them not to come to the cemetery? I thought, or its whole MO seems to be to lure you there and turn you into a
Right.
zombie. And some of this comes down to the trick that we've been pulling ever since Lovecraft, right? No one knows to this day.
Right.
So, some of it's just that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I had that problem with it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second
Oh,
question.
yeah, you had two.
What do you think the four animal mask kids represent, and who are they?
Oh, I didn't have a terrestrial answer, but I thought that they were probably zombie kids because they've been around forever. They're always wearing the animal
Right.
masks, so you don't see that they're rotting. And their job seems to be to find anything that's dead, like roadkill or whatever, and bring it to the thing.
cemetery.
So I feel
yeah.
like they're kids who are either already zombies or fully in thrall of the cemetery, like they're mind fucked completely.
and they just live in
They
the
probably
name of the
sleep in
place, by
woods
the
or
way.
whatever, yeah.
The name of the place, by the way, is Little God Swamp, which I love because I don't know. I like that it's like a god of the little things.
Well, that's yeah.
Even though it can bring back humans, I like the idea of people when they first kind of confronted this space were like, oh, the animals that we're burying here. keep
And
coming
King
back.
loves that. It's the same as desperation,
Yes.
Tack. He likes the idea of in a dark, far corner of the world, deep in the swamp, God's not omnipresent. Like God's grace does not reach, and it's the
Right.
domain of this random little tucked away primeval spirit that's playing its own little fucked up games and is slipping under the radar. And oh no, you walked into that area.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. For real. And it put me on this path where I was like, there's a line that Judd says at one point. He says it feeds on your grief. It gets into your mind. It says he's losing his own mind as he's being drugged. And I thought that an important part of the demonology in King's Worth is that it kind of feeds on something, right? The the events, the actual pain sometimes comes from your own actions. Like ultimately Lewis makes this choice, right? So there's a separation between the spirit and the body. What the want of the evil and the body, meaning like what your actions are, like what you do, how like that will haunt you as well. And I just think that that's a really interesting way in which he portrays like religion, like God works through you, but in this case it's just evil. And then I really noticed that King's story, as you kind of mentioned with it and a lot of things, fit nicely into two camps. One, you do it like the grief, you do it to yourself. Think of Carrie, Dead Zone, Thinner, a lot of the Creep shows, and even Misery. And then there's the other that it's like there's a big boss that just needs to be defeated, where you literally challenge a god, like It or Dark Tower with the Man in Black. Christine is a car. Mangler is, you know,
he has
a laundry
interchangeable
machine.
parts that he moves around.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, so it's just a monster that is stopped and made powerless. And he does both of them. And he's like, yeah, as you say, he interchanges them. But I just thought it was interesting that he really does one or the other. And this move, yeah.
Yeah. Or he does mundane, real world, grounded, Misery, Cujo. Like, I do like those where he's like, what if the monster was just a big dog and you're a little kid?
Right. He can
challenge.
Yeah, he can make it down like more grounded, but like still Misery is about like, it's not about the misery of just like a crazy fan. It's about the misery he did, like James Caan does to himself. Anyway.
Yeah. He still likes the thing where you brought it on yourself. Yeah. I also just, well, if you like this movie or this story, I guess, it reminded me a lot of Kill List, which is a horror movie I low-key really like. And then I thought it was interesting, just as we've been talking, it made me realize, and I don't think there's a direct influence there, but you could nutshell it pretty much the same way as The Last of Us, in the sense that it's about
yeah, I see it.
Obsessive daddy-daughter connection. There's zombies involved, and then the daughter is totally chill until he lies to her, and then she flips out. Speaking of flipping out, we didn't really cover that. I think it's amazing that all he wanted, understandably, is his daughter alive again. And almost their first interaction almost is, I'm dead, aren't I? No, honey, no, you're here with me. I can hear the woods inside me. Does mommy know? Please, Elle, close your eyes. And then he wakes up and she's doing ballet and throwing plates around. And his immediate reaction is to just scream, "Stop it!" My point being, he's already sick of her. Like,
yeah, like he already is like, no,
I'm regretting this. Yeah.
Yeah. Even when he lays down next to her, because she's like, come here, daddy.
He's like, you're
just
gross.
go to sleep.
I'm like, did you not know this was gonna? So yes, he really brings it on himself.
Yeah, he knows. He knows almost immediately, which is just really funny. Jason Clarke plays it pretty well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's just another, like, I wanted to talk about like how the Stephen King, ness of it all, like just all his tropes that he pulls from.
Yeah. We
did mention Maine, move from Boston, rural versus urban. We get the outsider trope. A family moves to a new strange setting, a town with history. Even the main source of physical danger, the street, it's playing on like family, that trope of families, parents telling kids don't play in the street. And I kind of referenced it earlier, big events that happen in this movie, as in like the arc points, like the, okay, the next thing that's important to the story arc happens on a birthday, Halloween, Thanksgiving, even a family move. These are all core family memories, classic family memories. So
and a super easy way in a film that you like to quickly show, and they lived there for a whole year. Like other movies have, it's such a handy, and I ain't mad at it. Like it works.
I love how time and time again, King's like if you had to say like one thing that King always does is that he invades the special, like important, quote, family, American moments, normalcy, the idea of being like the picturesque family, corrupting the sacred times of your life. And he's all about that. And it's just, I love that everything has to happen on like a moment, like a event that is special or sacred to us.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it has nothing to do with Thanksgiving or a birthday or Halloween. It's just on that day, because that's a day of memories, this terrible thing happened just to corrupt it. And so I think it's great. I just love, as we've done this podcast, how I have appreciation for King's like stick-to-itiveness on that front, because I think it's a really, really cool, unique thing that he does, and he's inspired a lot of people to do, but like it really is his thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I just have a couple more. My main point that's actually meaty or meaningful, I guess, is I do think, and I wonder about the book version. I don't know. Maybe he illuminates the inside of her head a little more. But the Rachel character, this is a trope in horror as well. But sometimes I wonder if it's a trope that comes from a place of unexamined bias. Sometimes we call it, like if it was an action movie, we'd call it fridging. But these characters in horror movies, usually women, usually the wife or whatever, who gets punished so much more than him and has this pre-existing trauma that's genuinely like, you are a little kid, it's no fault of your own. How fucked up that you carry this horror and this grief. And it's not resolved at all. In fact, her death is feeling worse about it than she's ever felt in her life as she watches her own baby kill her and say, I hate you. I'm in hell because you failed me as a mother. So I get that, well, it's horrifying because it's so bad, but it's not befalling the person who brought it on themselves. So it just feels cruel, and cruelty is a part of horror that I can totally get down with. I like Snowtown, if people know that incredibly cruel, fucked up movie. But I kind of bothers me structurally when the equation is wonky like that. Like, everyone warned Lewis, and Lewis transgressed, and yes, he has a bad time, but not as bad as Rachel. Rachel only
absolutely
exists as a character to be fucked with.
Yeah, exactly. That's true. It happens a lot, and I don't know if it's a King thing, but it's definitely a wider movie thing, and a genre thing in terms of horror.
It's just a subtler version of black character dies first in the horror movie, right?
Yeah. It's just not the white male protagonist, you know. The other execution thing, or the last thing that I'll say for this stuff, is like we did mention, this is kind of in the genre, or it's in the camp of suffering from bland, low contrast color correction and photography. Sometimes we're shown like this POV of a character looking into the forest or seeing something. One of the biggest ones is the Wendigo itself. It's like that's kind of a big art like moment, and the lack of highlights or shine on things that you're supposed to look at, just like the basic understanding of direction of the eye, it all just kind of looks like mush. So you're not quite sure or told as the audience member what part of the frame you're meant to look at. So you just kind of scan the frame with your eyes. That's bad. The other thing is, I think that this thing suffers from, as we mentioned, kind of the over-reliance of jump scares. I think jump scares aren't bad. We covered Carrie last time, and De Palma would do this, kind of just say like randomly a car almost swerves into another
car. But it has
car.
about a dozen, and that's too many for an hour.
It's
40.
just too many. Yeah. It's just too many, and because I think you need to build an ominous tone, and not be reliant just on creepy imagery. So jump scares are helpful in kind of navigating that space and just throwing something else at you. But like if you take Misery or Creepshow or 1408, there's a suspense that kind of fizzles into nothing, or the creepy imagery itself is more than just a haunt scare. And this movie just really loves them. And I think that that's something that I think is more indicative of like the James Wan era, like if you look at movies like The Nun or Conjuring, or
they're trying to make it punchy, when the impression I get is that the book was more of a somber, sad meditation on the grief of losing a child, the fact that we will all die someday and rot away. And they're like, but could it be punchier? Like, could you be on a roller coaster ride also? Right. And that's tough to do.
And at the same time, I think this thing suffers from pacing. It does. And that might actually be a part of the story itself.
I bet it's true in the book, but it is wild that the actual full escalation of the premise, meaning my kid came back to life, That's the break into 3. I thought that would happen at the midpoint because then we're in topsy-turvy land. If you know basic screenplay structure, you know what I mean. But it happens like 2/3 of the way through the movie, which is traditionally a little later than you would normally do a move like that.
That's right.
And I will say, I think while we're all shitting on it, hey, even not great movies make for great conversation, though. This was very satisfying. But
Agreed.
I thought the shot where Ellie tries to peer up over the bed because he's like, I know you're behind the bed, and she does an exorcist spider crawl.
Yeah.
Great. Any child actor that age, kudos to you. I'm sorry you're in whatever situation where you're doing a horror movie and your parents want you to do this, but maybe you're really well adjusted and you love it. But regardless, I don't want to shit on any child actor, but I'll just say the girl in this like is no Linda Blair. Or even like if you saw Evil Dead Rise recently, the Evil Dead Rise kids, it's just an execution thing.
Yeah, we talked about this. We've done this a few times in this podcast. I think when the Children of Corn, other than the leader, were like, these kids suck.
These kids are not killing it. But what's fun, and I only want to be honest about that because there's the rare movie where a kid does kill it. And it's like, that's mind blowing. Like it almost makes no sense to me. Think about what your thoughts were like when you were 9. And, you know, Haley Joel's 11 doing The Sixth Sense or whatever, and that's why Elle Fanning, was that her name? When one of those Dakota and Elle Fanning, when one of those kids comes along who can act like an adult acts, everyone's like, whoa. But most kids are not good, and this kid was not good. Linda Blair in The Exorcist, man, one of the all-time performances. Come on,
I mean,
she's giving it.
Get out
of here. And she sucks Satan's dick in hell. I believe is my understanding.
I believe is a direct quote. Yeah.
But is she good? Like, is it a good blowjob? That's what we never find out. Does she throw in a lot of teeth? Does Satan like teeth? He is the devil. Let's move into our final segment. This is where we rank this in order in like versus all the adaptations we've covered so far.
It's time to make your stand.
Boy, oh boy, do we have to have an offline conversation about this bloated list. We're at 23 now. So how do we approach this? Should we go from the top or the bottom?
I'm switching tabs. I would say let's go from the top because I don't think anyone would be surprised to find this will probably be in the bottom half.
Yep.
Okay, cool.
Not giving anything away,
Real
but
quick.
yes.
Number 1, The Shining.
All right, Shining.
Number 2, Dr. Sleep.
Stand By Me.
Number 3, Stand By Me.
Misery.
Number 4, Misery.
Dr. Sleep.
Boom, the quatrain. Number 5, The Mist.
The Mist.
Yeah, shoot that kid. And then have it mean nothing. It means nothing.
Nothing.
6, Carrie.
Carrie.
Yeah, 7, 1408. Talk about a cruel...
Running Man. I got nostalgia for it. I just love it.
Too cheesy for me. I do like the cruelty in 1408. Speaking of cruelty, I can work with. Creepshow, number 8.
I put number 8 as 1408 because
Okay.
I agree with you most of the time.
Surprise! Truck Flyby, number 9. Pet Sematary 2019. It's in my top half. But that doesn't mean it's great. That means it is fine. Like I would give it a C+.
It's in the middle road. I have like to
Pet
me
Sematary
the top.
pun. It's in the middle.
The
of
top. The top 8 are like, all right, bangers. And then the middle are like mediocre, and then the bottom.
This is literally the cutoff film for me now. Like
that's interesting.
Well, whereas I would say I like Creepshow, you should watch it, and I would say that about everything above that. Everything below here, I would say you don't need to watch that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I kind of agree. It's interesting because I put mine in the same, like what I would call section, but I put it at the bottom, so it's a little distant from. Yeah, we still got a ways before I bring up.
So
Pet
we're
Sematary.
arguing about the finer point of how mid is Pet Sematary 2019,
and I put it at bottom mid.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did we get your number 9?
9 is at Pupil for me.
Number 10, Dark Tower.
Number 10, The Green Mile.
Number 11, Apt Pupil.
Creepshow.
Number 12, Creepshow. I like that one. Number 12, Christine.
Desperation.
I think it's just because I
like
was
that.
obsessed with the comic as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Number 13, Running Man. Good but cheesy, and that hurts it for me.
13, and this is the one I probably regret the most. Christine. I just really didn't like it because I have such a high opinion of John Carpenter. So I put it lower than it probably deserves to be.
I thought it would be the stupidest, worst thing we would cover because it's about a haunted car till I learned the Mangler exists. But my point being, I put it kind of high because for being the dumbest premise ever and an old movie, which means by our standards, the scares are not very intense. I was like, it's still engaging and entertaining. And I have to chalk that up to
That's
Carpenter.
No, it's absolutely right.
What are we at?
14.
14, thinner.
14 is where I put this episode's Pet Sematary because it's like at the bottom 2 of what I would call the middle section.
Yeah. We're now leaving my middle section. Toot, last stop, Dead Zone.
For me, it's Children of the Corn, which at this point, I think they're all the same.
Well, so Dead Zone's the last one where I'd say there's some good craftsmanship on display, but it's pretty boring. Below this, I'd go, I actually think it sucks. Number 16, my favorite hot take, It TV series. I think it sucks.
I put 16.
Not
it
good.
sucks.
Not good. People growing up, it was legendary.
It's actually not good.
Actually not good. As is number 17, The Mangler.
Dead Zone.
The Mangler's fun to watch though.
Mangler is a fun movie night movie for sure.
Number 18, Desperation. Tack.
Number 18, I can't believe you put that so low. Number 18, The Dark Tower, because it's just hot garbage.
Desperation fell many rungs because I can't handle that it ends with the writer character who is a Stephen King analog who rides a motorcycle and plays rock and roll, bravely sacrifices himself to save the world from the devil. I'm just like, come on, Stephen King.
It's so sick. It's so sick.
Number 19, Children of the Corn.
Thinner, because it's bad and it's kind of racist.
Thinner's really bad. I should probably lower Thinner. I wonder if we'll ever reformulate. Okay, we'll talk about that off mic. Number 20, Dreamcatcher, the alien poop movie.
This one's where I put 1979 Salem's Lot, which is hot garbage.
Really bad. Dude, sometimes I just remember that scene where Jason Lee he wants to reach a single match on the toilet, but if he moves too far, the alien will leap up his butt, and that's the tension.
Yeah, because I put Dreamcatcher for my next one, and it's just like there are so many moments like Jonesy that I laugh out loud.
Yeah,
but I'm just like, this is a mess. You don't know what you're like. Wait, is it? Like there's 80 things going on.
You got bites his dick at once in a comedic fashion. Yeah.
You got mind prisons or mind palaces, and you got 4 types of aliens. You have telepathic people. It's it's all over the place, man.
Speaking of prisons, my number 21 is Green Mile. People are usually surprised it's so low. Listen to the episode if you want to know. No,
it's a hot take, baby. For 22, I put The Mangler just because. Fuck it.
The Mangler shot to the top of my it's bad list because it's fun bad. 22, I put Maximum Overdrive, which is over the top in a way that is trying too hard to be fun bad and comes off just bad to me.
I put for my last one that we've covered so far in this series as of, what is this going to come out? This is going to come out at the end of May 2023. Maximum Overdrive, because not only is it just as bad as the last 4 movies we've all mentioned, it's also an irresponsible film that almost killed people.
The set was a nightmare.
Did cocaine.
And as a director, you actually think it's you care. I mean, I care, but it doesn't occur to me. You're like, it's morally wrong to fucking put people in danger for a film.
Yes.
You keep that in mind. That's good. For me, number 23, committed the gravest sin you can commit, which is just as boring as anything we've encountered on this show so far. Salem's Lot, 1979.
And that's a wrap.
Baby's first concept of, its premises, there are vampires here.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
right. That's right. Imagine a vampire. Ooh, okay, you got me started. That's it. That's all I got. Well, you know what? We're gonna have to figure out something about how we approach this. We put it in categories. We give it new numbers. I don't know.
No.
It's getting. What when we do?
Do you
when
remember
we've
the
done
beginning of
40
this?
episodes?
I said that's the joke. That's
so when we
that's the
are on
brilliant,
episode
unfunny Tim Heidecker
40.
style Nathan Fielder-esque joke.
God, and now it's going to be a joke that I hate it and you love it. So let's
that's
run with that.
The escalation of the bit.
That's the part that makes it really sizzle. Well, this was a joy. Nice brisk episode on 2019's Pet Sematary. Do you have any final thoughts before we play ourselves out?
Only if you know what's like you could give a sneak peek at our slate if you know what's coming up, but if you don't.
Yeah, we have a director piece theater coming up this week,
Nice.
And it's on Top Gun, and it's basically an essay that was written by Adam Ganzer, and it's real good. We already recorded it, and I think it's great. Also, we're gonna have another installment of Star Trek: The Next Futurama, and we have a frame rate because we've turned back on the Pick the Flick tier. So here's the deal. If you go to patreon.com/smallbeans, you're probably listening to it right now on there. You can go to the tiers, and one of the tiers is Pick the Flick. If it is already taken, you can't get it. But if it's open, you can pay some money and choose the movie that we cover on our other one of our other podcasts, Frame Rate, where we just talk about whatever we want to talk about, movies, where we cover a movie that's chosen by you. Also, we have The Return. That I think there's some pageantry here that's necessary. The return of our other show that has initials that sound like cock, which is Cast and Curious.
No, cack.
Because we just had the 10th installment with Fast X. So Sarah and Bridget are back again, and they're bringing the heat. Very furiously. So look forward to those episodes.
I sacked a cack and have it yad.
Cock and cack. That's where it's at.
Vocal exercise.
Yeah. And there's one other thing we always want to mention, right? Which is that we're making a movie, yeah?
Well, I assume the start plate will be on this.
That's true.
That's true. But if you've
listened this far,
yeah, and you're somehow not aware, we're making a movie. The campaign's still live as of this release. It should be live for like 18 more days. Looking at the calendar, ends June 15th. So yeah, we really, really mean it, and we mean it as hard as we can. We can make a movie. We want to make a movie. We'll do a really good job. Please trust us with some of your money if you'd be willing to. If you could spare it, you can find out all about the film by going to seedandspark.com/fund/Papa-Bear. That's the name of the movie, Papa Bear. Or you could rewind this episode all the way to the beginning, and I believe we drop the synopsis in the start plate. So
yeah. And you can also click
line.
it in the description of this episode. So please do that. We'd love you forever, even though, as we are wont to say, we love you.
But now it's contingent upon something.